Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Footy Classified 2026. We have a big episode coming at you right now, so let's get stuck into our award-winning panellists. And we start with the journalistic great himself, Damian Barrett. Damo.
Good evening, Sam.
Welcome to you. Looking forward to coming straight to you. The Geelong man himself, one of the greatest players the game has seen, Jimmy Bartel. Welcome to you, James.
Evening, Sam.
And the man who kicked 926 goals for the Essendon Football Club, Matthew Lloyd. Lordo, great to have you.
Thanks, Sam.
Damo, as we go straight to you, there is a fresh twist in the set of circumstances surrounding the Carlton Football Club across the weekend. It involves the club, that awful loss to Sydney, and of course the now well-documented infamous comments from their former co-captain, Sam Docherty.
And Sam, before we get to that fallout, let's revisit the comments made by Sam Docherty on a podcast last Friday.
So basically what happens, and exactly what happened again last night, is the same that happens every other game. When the game's hot and contested and pressurised, Carlton's good in that environment, but as soon as some team can do somewhat good in the contest, the rest of the game just falls to pieces. Then they start losing contests, they get under pressure, they can't get a hold of the ball, and they're just an absolute show. So basically you smack our mids again this year and we'll be going off last night. Change all the ball movement you want in the world, but it's the same issue.
So Docherty had been booked to appear at a Carlton Football Club function next Thursday prior to the Carlton-Richmond game at the MCG. And subsequent to those comments being aired publicly, he has been contacted by the club and now told he will not be appearing at that particular function. It's certainly a temporary cooling off between the two parties. He will be included in future club functions, but it is a direct result of the comments made on that podcast. And Graham Wright tonight, the Chief Executive Officer of the Carlton Football Club, has confirmed to Footy Classified that indeed that decision has been made via this statement. We made a decision based off supporting our own people internally. He did go on to say that Sam is absolutely entitled to make his comments however he sees fit, but on this particular decision it was decided that the internal people at Carlton are the ones getting the Carlton support.
That's an extraordinary story from you, Damo, and for me an extraordinary decision, Lordo, that a CEO would essentially ratify a decision to uninvite a former captain of the club to speak at a function because of airing his opinion.
Yeah, obviously people within the club, whether that's players or the coach himself, maybe they'd be upset and hurt by the comments. But I think in the cool light of day, they could take a good listen, take away the word S show and all the swear words and go, you know what, there's a fair bit of truth in what he's saying here, that when our midfielders are going well, we go well, but once they get matched or beaten, we're in a lot of trouble because, it's our big bodies who can do the work, but when they don't do the work, we're in trouble. So I think if they could look deeper, they've got to say he's got a lot of points to what he's making here, but it's probably the way he went about it. But he was let down, as I've said before. He was let down, so he never would have thought this would come and air the way it was aired. But there's a lot of truth to it.
Yeah, that's all part of it, Lordo, the way it was aired, and that is one part of it. I've subsequently learnt today that Sam Docherty made comments similarly to the ones he made without the swear words on the 3AW broadcast on the night in question, the Thursday night game against the Sydney Swans. My take on all of this, I think he's entitled to his views. Equally, I think Carlton is entitled to the decision it's made this week, because I think to not make a statement of that type in this week with all the pressure that is on the club full stop
but Damo,
would have caused more drama.
Haven't they just made the story much bigger? If they kept him in that function on Thursday, and if you're entitled to your opinion, you're entitled to your opinion. By removing him, that was always going to make news. Now it makes, whether this is accurate or not, Jimmy, it feels like to me as a journo, it makes it look like they don't like being challenged.
Yeah, it does seem like it's made a bigger story out of nothing, or a mountain out of a molehill. And I was on that coverage on 3AW, and it's funny, when you grab snippets of things, you can frame them in any way you want. And Sam was incredibly positive of Carlton in the first half in particular, and he was very strong in his comments post-game, and he was probably under the impression, well, that wasn't going to get to air, but they actually were the same theme, or the same themes he was talking about in that podcast.
Just seems like Lloyd jumping at shadows, but they've got as many problems on the field as they do off it, don't they? Because they had promised change in the off-season, and we know they've got a new list, but I think one of the questions is going to be, do they have the cattle for this new game plan?
Yeah, and Chris Davies spoke around trade period about his views on what they've done over that period.
When you start to think about Ainsworth, Florent, Hayward, Chesser, players who we believe can have an impact on what our squad looks like in 2026, and definitely adds depth in an area that Carlton hasn't had. We think that on balance that our team should be better than what it was this year.
Completely different personnel that we've got there. So, We've got a new style of football that we're trying to play. We obviously clearly couldn't execute that for as long as we wanted to tonight, and that put us under an extreme amount of pressure.
I have seen the new style that Michael Voss has tried to play. It just obviously was good for 2 quarters, up 4 goals up. They were playing pretty well, pretty good pre-season series. But I think Michael has a worse list to play with. I just think with A-grader, Curnow, A-grader, De Koning, and Jack Silvani a good B-grader. And then I think in terms of Ainsworth couldn't get a regular game at his club last year. Ollie Florent couldn't get a regular game, and Chess has been crippled by injuries in his time. So Hayward's a good player, not a great player. So I think Voss has less to work with in a big year for him with what he had last year.
I'm not as strong on that list as you are, Lloydie, because I do look at it and he is trying to move, and the glaring weakness for Carlton last year was ball use going inside forward 50, and I think some of those players can improve that. Now, they're not going to be A-graders, that's why they lost their spot as sides, but there's some extenuating circumstances regarding the outs. You know, Charlie, that was probably time for that relationship to end with Carlton by the end. They were never going to match Tom De Koning. Silvani was, again, probably another one who wanted to move on for a different start. So I think they made the best out of the situation. They do have to address what they're doing for the footy, but those group of 5 players, and then you throw in Harry Dean, and then of course Jagger Smith is essentially a recruit. Yeah, they might take a half step back, but I think 20, 30 games with this group, I reckon they'll be ahead of the 2025 group.
Sam, after some clearly valid soul-searching at that footy club last year as it unfolded poorly for everyone attached to it, they decided to ultimately go into 2026 with Michael Voss in his 5th year as Carlton coach. Now, as they were doing all of those negotiations and projections, you reported on this show that they were looking elsewhere. We might just take a look back at that now because it has a context today.
My understanding, and I can report to you tonight, that there were multiple people that were approached to coach Carlton in 2026. One of them is a current rival coach of one of the other 17 clubs. Carlton deny this. They've called the story misleading, untrue and factually incorrect.
My understanding is that senior coach was Craig McRae, that someone at Carlton reached out to. Now, Graham Wright, in his denials, said it was no one of any importance.
Right.
Now,
which someone was it?
I don't know.
Okay.
But Craig McRae was the person.
Oh, that's not true. It's, geez, I'm caught up in a lot of things at the moment, aren't I? No, look, I've got a contract here. That's just extended, thankfully enough, and my best mate works there. Like, no, it's no, that's not real.
So that was initially broadcast late in the 2025 broadcast season. Sam, what can you tell our viewers tonight in the first show of 2026?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, that this has come back out? And to back up on what Lloydie was just saying, I agree with you. I think the irony of this whole situation now is that Michael Voss finds himself in a more difficult and precarious position because he hasn't got the cattle to work with. So if you if you backtrack to the end of last year, before they decided to say, OK, we'll go into 2026 with Michael Voss, they had a look around. Now, one of the guys they offered the job to was Craig McRae, who was at Collingwood. At the time, I decided not to name him because he wasn't going to do it, and so I didn't want to drag his name through the mud while Collingwood was still going through their season. It's out now, so we should talk about it. Now, if they were to move on Michael Voss midway through this year, if it's not working out, or not re-sign him at the end of this year, I think they are less appealing now to another coach, call it a John Longmire or Adam Simpson or someone of that calibre.
You don't think being an AFL coach and a coach of a big club like Carlton is appealing?
I'm saying they would be less appealing to an established coach who that they could think could win a premiership with. I think ultimately now, if Michael Voss isn't coaching this club in 2027, I think it's more likely now, Jimmy, that they're going to have to go down the untried coach because they have weakened their list.
Yeah, I get that point, and I probably just disagree in a little bit of it because all coaches have got strong egos in their philosophy of football, and I think any coach out there who wants to be an AFL coach or an established one, like you're mentioning, and using the Longmire example, is the challenge to take Carlton back and win a premiership. I think that'd be exciting for someone like a Longmire or a Ken Hinkley, just to grab another name, or even an untried coach.
Don't you think it's going to be harder now, given the talent that they've let walk out the door?
But AFL senior coaches are AFL senior coaches because they love the heart.
Yep.
So, that's what would be appealing. If I was a coach and I saw where Carlton have been and where they're at the moment, that'd be incredibly attractive for me because of the challenge. And you imagine if you do get success at Carlton. It'd be extraordinary. You'd be set for life.
Lloyd, you made the comment in the off-season that the transfer of Charlie Curnow to the Swans could see him become the best player in the comp end of year. You got to see him play first up against his old club on Thursday night. You maintain that view?
It wasn't his best game, I'd say, on Friday night against Thursday night. I think it was against the Blues. Kicked his 3 goals on a bad night. I thought, as I said, he's marking. He only took 3 marks, so that's a big area. Can he get his marking back where he can just be a colossus? He's so good at ground level. He kicks his snaps and those sorts of things. But if you're kicking 3 on a poor night, or just an okay night, well, you're on track for 65, 70 goals. So he's going to get up there with Heaney, Goulden, Warner and Blakey, putting it down your throat at the SCG. I think they'll win 16 or 17 games. I've got the Swans finishing top 3. Well, then I think he easily could kick 75, 80 goals, and then you're going to place him in one of the best players in the game again.
Yes or no, was it the right decision to let him go?
Yes, because he didn't want to be there.
Okay. More questions than answers about the Saints and what happened last night at the MCG, Damian Barrett. You have been strong ever since they went down the road of this splash of the cash, if you like, this recruiting spree that they needed to perform to justify it.
Yeah, and one game into 23 home and away games. I'm not making judgments on this, but just to remind people what they chose to do by way of bringing those last 4 names in and keeping the side Wangan and Miller at that money, which is fully validated. You don't make these decisions unless you're hitting go, and officially you hit go. They brought forward by at least 12 months plans that they had to bring players in, potentially initially at the end of this 2026 season. They brought that forward by a full 12 months. And when I make that comment about making and winning a final, they were made after the AFL decided to include 10 teams in finals. Yep. You don't have to be that good a team in 2026 and going forward to make the finals. There's only 18 teams in the comp. So that comment is in direct relation to that. And again, they've got 22 matches to rectify what they did first up.
Are we counting a wild-card win as a finals win?
It's a finals game officially.
Is it a finals win?
If you play 7 versus 10, it's a finals match of football in official AFL stats.
The AFL is certainly counting it, and they're counting the dollars that the Saints are paying Nazai Wangan Miller. And Ross Lyon and Craig McRae had their say after the game, after he was quite well held.
Naz had more of a go without a lockdown. I thought he started the game really well. I thought Naz, didn't have his best night, but he never gave up and kept working, and he's got to work through that phase.
It was the leadership group really pushed it. I'm not taking ownership for that. The leaders really wanted to set a bit of a target and go after him. And I went to Pez, and I won't share exactly what he said, but he was pretty excited about doing the job. And I don't think we'll be the first or the last to tag him.
Every young player goes through it. Jimmy would have gone through it where you get sat on and you don't handle it well. I certainly did when you had fullbacks coming at you and trying different things at you. So he's had one game where it's the first game in 40 where he hasn't got over 20 possessions. And he's a fantastic player who works extremely hard, and he got shut down by a good tagger. So I think it's just blown up because we expect so much of him. Nick Daicos went through it. I remember when Finn McGuinness got a hold of him, and players like that did beat him. So he's just got to work through it. The only concern is, who else do you go after? Naz wants other players to get off the hook in the chain. They go, oh, what do we do about him? But who's number 2? Who's the number 2 player at St Kilda through that midfield that's going to worry opposition teams? No one really jumps out at me. So that's going to be the worry, how they can look after him and protect him.
On the recruiting of the Saints, it could have the potential to cause unintended consequences on how it affects other people in the team?
Yeah, well, Rowan Marshall's that one, Sam. He wanted out because all ruckmen want to be the number 1, and he's on the weekend, he was 50-50. So he was 50-50 pretty much, and De Koning was 78%. So he had to be a forward, and I watch him. He's got no speed. And it's a nightmare if you're trying to get off these backmen and you've got no ping in your legs to get off. And he's not a cost. I was watching his timing, so just shown a few. He was just misjudging the football. It's not natural for Marshall. And I know people at St Kilda think he can be a good forward. I don't think he can. I'd be surprised if he could kick 15 to 20 goals personally as a forward. So he wants to be a ruckman. That's what he wants to be. And then the other one is with Flanders coming in. Well, it's push mark. It's the last of him where he's just falling over and missed timing, and then he got concussed and was out of the game. And then see, Filippo is the player who's on Daicos. That was Windhager last year, but because Flanders has come in, suddenly Windhager's been spat out to a half-back flank. Daicos would have been that happy that Windhager wasn't coming to him and terrorising him. So I think Windhager needs to be set for 4 or 5 players a year that he goes after in a tagging capacity.
And there is a little bit of irony in the other consequences that have had in their trading, the guys that have gone out as well. People like Josh Battledamo.
Well, first year out of the club, he made All-Australian. And I raise that because they then went down the path of, hey, we need a backman. And they got Jack Silvani in, who for injury reasons, isn't yet in the conversation that Josh Battle is in. I just raise it, Sam, because of you asking the question about the consequences of the recruiting. It's had an impact on Marshall. Marshall wanted to go to Geelong, and then, rightly, St Kilda said, we've got a contract with you for 2 more years, we're not letting you go. But that was already discussed prior to the trade period going down.
And they played a very slick side, of course, on Sunday night. And a lot will be made of the experience the Pies had. But, gentlemen, it's their situational awareness late in the game. When the game got tight and their willingness just to take uncontested marks. And this actually takes a fair bit of energy to execute, because when you're trying to find that free mark, you need everyone to make the ground big and create a lot of space. And then we heard Nick Daicos post the game of how they work together as a team to find those free numbers.
Yeah, that's something that we'll continually feel like we can exploit if opposition want to come after one of our players, and I think you saw that late. If they're going to be selfish tagging and not help out with their teammates, we'll just chip the ball around and take time off the clock.
So that's Nick identifying. He had the tag there in Garcia, and if he could drag him over the contest, we see the Pies, they've just always had the free and spare. And again, another coachable moment for St Kilda. At some stage, you've got to push up and make them kick long down the line and get the game in the contest. They're all just dropping back. And the Pies will take that, and that actually takes a bit of courage and being brave to just keep lobbing the ball back and forward. But it proved match-winning in the end.
Yeah, he just reminded everyone, don't leave me out of the conversation about best player in the comp. He's contracted for Collingwood for end of 2029. It's a good sizable deal. It's on nowhere near the money that Nassau Manganine Miller is on. I just raise it because his management now has been very public and have gone public about wanting to engage in conversations with how the Tasmanian deal could look. So, look, Collingwood's confident they've got him. They've obviously got him on their books for 2029. Their president, Barry Karp, bought into this on radio recently.
It was unfathomable that it would be Ablett, but it was. Is it unfathomable that it could be Daicos?
I think it's unfathomable. And I think from a members and fans perspective, yes, it's unfathomable.
Can you also let us know if he gets maximum best and fairest votes too?
We changed the system. We did. The system was needing to be changed to reward the extreme games. He had an extreme game tonight, didn't he?
And he's an extreme player, and it's an extreme situation because the game, you just heard about the Gary Ablett scenario, it's unlike anything we've really seen before, Jimmy. And I know you play in this player movement space quite deeply and are a thinker in this. They're going to have to get creative, Collingwood, because Tasmania's financial offer will be much more than Collingwood. So I just wonder whether they try something left field.
I think it's got long-term deal written all over it. It's hoping that the next CBA jumps up a fair bit and then you're able to stretch money for quite considerable time. So there might actually be where you can go 10 plus years.
Yeah.
Because they haven't put restrictions on the years, and then you work out those issues as it gets down the track, and you hope the salary cap then jumps another 25-30% from where it is now.
So why can't Collingwood pay him $2 million? Like, I just asked, who are they paying? Like, they can do it for Nasai and De Connings on.
Well, they'll probably be able to pay him that, but Tasmania are going to be able to pay him much more because they've got a $5 million pool of sign-on bonuses.
Yeah.
So Matthew Lloyd, you, Nick Daicos, here's $2 million before you even start. And we can pay you as much as you want, really, because we're going to have extra room. I know where Jimmy's going, and I think that Collingwood might have to think about paying him for years he's not going to be there. That's the sort of deal that they're going to have to do to keep him. Nick Daicos very close with Gary Ablett.
For years that he's not on playing football.
Yeah, I think so.
So you blow a list spot.
I think he might be. This is me talking, not Collingwood. I think he might be that sort of player that you have to say it's worth it.
We haven't seen that happen in football.
No,
that I can recall.
No, we haven't. But, things are going to get to a point where it's like we either do that or we let him walk around wearing green in Tasmania. Which one would you rather?
You can't let him do that. I think he must start Collingwood and it'd be devastating. He's just going to... The money he would make Collingwood off-field in merchandise and everything like that, he cannot be lost.
Hey, on that, the money that Scott Pendlebury's made Collingwood in the last 15 years has been extreme. The way that he was used last night, some will call it genius.
Yeah.
Would you?
Well, I think they got away with it in the end. I think because Scott is so good at playing whatever role the team asked him to play. I just thought that there were stages when, in the second quarter, when he was off the ground with De Goey, they didn't play very well, and St Kilda got a bit of a run on. So I think with 5 players on the interchange bench, clubs are trying to work out how not to blow up their rotations and just keep key players on the field. But it was one of the great games I've ever seen for a player who only played half of it. I gave him second best on ground. He played 55% of it.
Hot start on Footy Classified, and there is plenty more coming up. But first, as we go to the break, the AFL industry, the television industry, lost a giant last week. And as we head to this break, we pay tribute to the great Dennis Cometti.
Back to the MCG, and a good one to start proceedings. Goes long down towards the pocket. Ablett is there, almost the one-hander. Finds it on the ground from 25 metres out. He's kicked it. His 8th goal. There's the siren. A heart stopper. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just seen a classic. Wilson, like a cork in the ocean, over his head. Oh my word! Right on the boundary line, shooter. There is no justice in football. That was the look on the face of Michael Martin.
So he comes in and hits the post.
Gaspar, the unfriendly post. Goes down towards half forward. Look out! Oh! Revolt! Remarkable! Fairy tales do come true. Can he top himself? He can't top himself. Oh, hush my mouth. Hush my mouth. King of the moment. King of the man. The son of the man. Revolt runs in. Touched up the bounce. It came up behind him like a librarian. How will it bounce? The stadium holds its breath. It's a goal. And the western suburbs erupt. Gun barrel strikes. Centimetre perfect.
Good evening and welcome back to Footy Classified. Now we turn our attention to the Hawthorn Football Club, who felt like they were flag favourites when they had Will Day up and flying when they were going after Zach Merrett. Unfortunately, it has not panned out that way, particularly after the side's devastating loss to Greater Western Sydney. Let's hear from their coach, Sam Mitchell.
We got what we deserved. Thought they outworked us from the very start of the game, and we have no excuses to put in that sort of work rate. So we thought we were much better prepared and we'd be much more equipped to handle what they produced than we were. Really disappointed with how easy they got their goals compared to how hard we had to work for ours.
Yeah, it's been a massive wake-up call. Poor pre-season form. They smashed by the Western Bulldogs and then torched by a side who was really vulnerable. 8 of their best 22 not playing, and just wanted to show the vision how slow Hawthorn are here to react. Like you can see, they're not moving well. There's no finger pointing. They're not supporting each other. They're just allowing uncontested marks, balls chipping through, a player just jumping at the top of the square, and they're all looking around at each other. That's how I saw Hawthorn. So we're going to see what they're made of. They play Friday night football against the old foe, the Bombers. You'd expect them to come out and make an absolute statement. I think Sam Mitchell, this one from Weddle, just not good enough. So he's come under pressure this week. It's one game, but that just wasn't good enough there. And there's many cases we could have shown, so expect a real response from them Friday night.
Sam, the Hawks went chips in on Zach Merrett. It was always going to be difficult with Essendon's stance pretty early in the piece. Did they have a serious look at someone like Christian Petrarca, or you're thinking they're going to postpone to Zach Butter's sweepstakes?
They did have a good look at Christian Petrarca. I think it's probably twofold. I think one element of it was that they were, as you said, to use your terminology, chips in on Merrett, so couldn't afford both. The other one, my understanding, is that they weren't sure that he was the type of ball user, particularly by foot, that they wanted to get into the club. Sam Mitchell, like his predecessor, Alistair Clarkson, loves great kickers of the footy. Christian Petrarca at Melbourne hasn't been that. Now,
Christian Petrarca first up.
Christian Petrarca first up for the Gold Coast Suns.
Went at 82%.
Yeah, may have looked slightly different. But I think that's probably the reasoning there. But you're right. I mean, it looked like they needed added midfield depth, didn't it, across the weekend? There's no doubt about that. Damo, is there anything in the new training facility at Dingley, and since they've been there in the conditions that the players...
Look, it's a windy facility, Sam. Now, the club won't be saying anything publicly about this, and they're not going to be allowing themselves to buy into it, but it is a problem. I've spoken to people that have referred to it being a problem. It is exposed to all sorts of elements, and it's not ideal when you're trying to be precise with some of your training drills. It's a magnificent facility in so many ways, and on a day without the wind that Melbourne is often known for, it is perfect. But on the days when there is wind, and even when there's not a lot of wind elsewhere, there can be some issues with it. So they're aware of it. They're going to try and do what they can about it, but ultimately they're left to the elements.
Are you saying players and coaches not overly happy with it?
It's not ideal. It's probably the best phrase to use, Lordo. But they've put so much time into it, and it is such a magnificent, in some ways, benchmark leading facility when it goes to what's inside and under roofs. But the actual ovals themselves and the areas themselves where they train are not ideal.
Did either of you two deal with this in your illustrious times in footy?
Windy Hill wasn't the best.
Yeah, well, I was going to go there.
Geelong can get pretty cold and windy at times.
It's not ideal to spend that sort of money on a new facility in between two freeways and then decide, actually, it's quite windy here.
Yeah. They were well aware of that. I think the land was too good to not take.
Potentially one to watch. Love that you've raised that, Damo. A couple to watch over the course of the year. One we'll get to in a moment. But first, Clayton Oliver, who left clubs in tumultuous circumstances, it must be said, in the off-season, had some interesting comments to say about his former club.
Came back pretty unfit, to be honest. I was a little bit fat, but honestly, these boys, like the first session I came back, I was running with Witters, Toby Bedford, Lockie Ash, and mate, the standard they set is just, it's actually on that level.
Yeah, I wonder how Melbourne would view that because they were premiers and he would have trained with some of the best trainers at Melbourne when they were at their absolute best. I think it's
he once was the absolute best himself.
That's right. So I reckon it's more about him, that he dropped off and he fell away, not about what the standards were at Melbourne.
So you think that's an unfair cop-out on the Demons?
I think if, you take it a bit personally that when a new player goes to a new club and he says they're training on a certain level, because I think Melbourne were cutting edge for a period of time. Yes, they've had their moments where they've dropped off and they haven't been as professional as they've needed to be, some of them. But it's on Clayton, I think, a fair bit this last few years.
And then I guess it felt like Jayden Laverde also had a bit of a crack at his former club, the Bombers, albeit through the prism of one of his close mates, Jake Stringer, who, of course, was a former teammate himself at the Bombers.
Essendon wouldn't re-sign him, and then when the opportunity came, I'm glad they went after him because, as he proved yesterday, in a good system, and the way that the defenders defended yesterday was outstanding, and he was definitely a highlight of them.
Some more interesting comments from a former teammate. Lloydie, what about the Western Bulldogs? Have they finally cracked this code? We know that they've been able to demolish some teams with their scoring ability. Is it just that? We're going to score more than you?
It was good that they took a scalp because last year they were 2 wins and 9 losses against the best, as we can see down there. But still, last year they were the number 1 offensive side and number 11 for defence. So unless they can be top 5 defence, even top 4, they won't win a premiership. Great that they took the scalp. Let's take a look at what their best looks like. It is lethal, absolutely lethal. They've got half-back flankers that we love. Buderick was sensational through this game. You've got Bailey Williams on the wing. You've got Bailey Dale. Then you've got Ed Richards through the midfield. Bontempelli. Matty Kennedy played a brilliant game. And then you've got a stacked forward line. So it's all there for them. It's just, can they stand up defensively is still the knock. And I'm not telling anyone they don't know, but they still concede over 100 points in this game of football. And that's the area. They're capable of being top 4, but that's the area that's going to be the difference.
So you think it's still a bit risky trying to have these shootouts week in, week out?
Yes, yeah. I think it is. And you don't want to put this pressure on Karmas and O'Donnell because they haven't got the Harris Andrews or the Jacob Wiedering back there. So
the lockdown,
the superstar A-grade defender.
And Bevo copped some criticism for his magnet changes, and you highlighted quite a number of them there, Lloydie, but you have to give him his dues when they pay off. And Karmas, he got wrong when he moved him forward, but moved him back and he looks more established. Ed Richards, who was best on ground, was on the half-back flank and still until he moved some players around. They won the game by moving Bont forward at critical moments and kicked 3 goals. You highlighted Bailey Williams up the wing because you can bring Connor Budrick to the half-back flank. The Bailey Dale one has been sensational because he was a high forward, bit of wing, half-back, and you even go back to Caleb Daniel. He's willing to throw them around and he cops some criticism, and I like that he looks at each year and goes, well, we didn't win with how it looks, so we need to change the look.
Are they top 4, Jimmy, or you've got them just outside that?
No, I had them 4th. I know I don't think they've ever, or maybe once
they haven't finished 4th.
Top 4th under Bevo.
Made 2 grand finals, but never from a position of 4th or better.
Yeah, I went through their fixture and I had them 4th, but it's going to be a logjam.
Yeah. Look, the Lions, even in their 3 past grand final appearances, have started slowly. So that was another slow start to this year. But the jolt came off field when Harris Andrews was suspended for 3 weeks, Zach Bailey for 1 and Darcy Gardner for 1. They're taking 2 of those 3 to the tribunal, the Andrews one and the Gardner one. But you can also see there's an injury list which is problematic, and add McCluggage to that, who went out of the game early with a soft tissue.
Yeah, I think they'll be okay. They just got to keep ticking over, and if they can just even be 3-3.
They're running out of key defenders, though.
I know they are, but they'll keep finding a way, I think. It wasn't a bad loss, that. It was a great, high-level game of footy.
And nice to see Charlie Cameron back to some form after a year that he was heavily criticised for last year.
Word out of Brisbane is that he didn't have the best pre-season after winning the first premiership, and his form suffered last year, where he's had the pre-season of his life, even at his age, and I saw it come to the fore. So in a loss, some of these moments where he was desperate, and there was games last year where he just wasn't touching the footy. Well, I thought he was back to his absolute best, sharp in offence, and when they didn't have the ball as well. So he's in for a big year.
Yep, certainly good to see that man back to his best for a lot of that game, despite, as Lloyd said, the loss. Hey, plenty more coming up on Footy Classified, including the Watercooler. And after an off-season of spruiking the new changes to the game, is the AFL now dealing with potential unintended consequences and track record? Yes, Brand Protracker back bigger than ever on the Gold Coast. How do Demons fans feel now? It's all coming up. That plus a whole lot more on Footy Classified. Yes, the Watercooler is back, and this year it is all thanks to Hyundai, where we debate the big issue that has everyone talking in AFL this week. And this week we're going to go big with the changes to the rules and everything that the AFL Damo has been spruiking in the off-season about making the game better.
Yeah, and as we discuss this and have our own views on it, let's go back to what Greg Swan, who ultimately brought these changes in, had to say about it when asked.
Yeah, the things that we wanted, the game length has come back, the scoring's gone up. Scoring from centre bounces has gone up. So, we're hopeful that goes into the season proper.
Well, it started okay, the season proper. We've had some good games, had some average games, but I think the beltings are going to... One thing we had dour games, and we wanted to see more scoring, but some of these beltings on the weekend were massive. Geelong were disappointing, but you see the Carlton one. But I look at it, say, for the stand rule, where you can't really defend that well, and also the last touch out of bounds, so there's not as many stoppage. I just fear for some of the Norths and the West Coasts and these sides that have been put down for a while, the golf in, say, Carlton v Sydney. Once Sydney cranked into gear, Carlton just... It was like the gap between the two teams is absolutely massive. So I just think some of the haves and have-nots is going to be pretty big throughout this course of the season.
I agree with that, Lloydie, and you had some experienced sides too who can actually run out, the 4 quarters, even with the extra one on the bench. And there's a stat that probably jumped out to me early. I know it's a very small sample size, so watch this space. And this is ball movement, so from D50 to back 50. So taking out your defensive 50 and getting it all the way inside forward 50. So that year 25, last year's average was only 22%. Those sides have put up big scores and big margins, well up over 30%. And I think that'll increase once, as you said, some sides who we think are top 4 or 5 playing bottom 4 and 5 sides, because the skill execution and more ground to play with means more space and they can really punish you.
I love these rule changes. I love the refocus on the Stephen Hawking introduced stand rule. And yeah, I do.
You love it.
I love it. I think it's opened up so much of the game. I can see what Lloydie's saying about it exposing the lesser teams. And another little quirk with that out-of-bounds rule, Lloyd, you need to have at least 1 foot on the boundary line, which is taking that player out of the stop process. So I just want to explore that with what you said. Do you feel we could have a top 9 teams this year, as we had last year, and a really poor 9, or at least a really poor...
Yeah, I think what he's doing is right, and we need to score more, and it was becoming mauls and rolling mauls, so we're in a better space than we were. But I just think today the West Coast Eagles be the Gold Coast Suns this week, for example, and there's the sides like that, maybe the Bombers and the Blues and the Eagles and North. There's not many levers they can pull when the game starts going against you, whereas you could in the past. So that's where...
Isn't it the challenge of the coach to do what Craig McRae did late against St Kilda?
Now there's 666 and things like that. There's not too many things you could do like you could do in the past.
It's actually fascinating because when Gillon McLachlan took over as CEO, his first press conference, he said, I want every group of fans to be able to go to the footy on a Saturday afternoon and think their team is a decent chance against any opposition team. Now, when he finished, it felt like, outside of maybe North and West Coast, but he was correct there. Now, if what you're saying is correct, granted it's a small sample size, it could actually go the other way, and we could have the stronger teams, Jimmy, getting better, and the weaker teams, to use your words, having less levers to pull.
Well, because the stronger sides have got greater depth across positions. So even if we analyse Brisbane or Gold Coast or some of those winning sides, and that's why even when Brisbane and the Dogs played each other, we had a high-class game because they both have the ability to pick their way through. The young and inexperienced sides, or the sides that are trying to emerge, actually have flaws in their game that they can't actually emphasise what you can do with those new rules.
It's where Scotty Pendlebury and these senior core players are even more important now than ever before.
That was the Watercooler, all thanks to Hyundai doing big things in the biggest game. Damo the Cats. Chris Scott isn't worried. Should Cats fans be?
Well, no. They make finals, or they do in every year, bar two in the past 25, Sam. So, look, he's taken, I think, what's the obvious view. They did have Paddy Dangerfield, Jeremy Cameron, and to a lesser extent, Jack Bowes out, but typical Chris Scott, and you know why. He's got the track record.
We're pretty calm, I think. It was obviously a really difficult night, but the most important thing for us is to take what we need to out of it and move forward. We won't be overreacting to one performance. There's obviously work to do, but we've got to be careful we don't make it bigger than it is.
Jimmy, they're still a very different footy club with the way they manage themselves, and they embrace it, they celebrate it. The coach himself, it's not the first time that he's taken a lot of time off in the off-season. It's probably the most media coverage it's got, and the fact he's had to buy into it. But you still endorse the way they carry themselves as a footy club, don't you?
Well, it's been incredibly successful for, as we mentioned, 20, 25 years. They get players in the right position. Coaches seem to be very happy. They keep being able to adjust on the run, and 10 home games at what is one of the most difficult places still to win football games.
Are you as convinced they're going to be there again? History says they get there again.
They looked like a team that was, 4 weeks off, but Gold Coast played, 2 weeks less football, but they looked right off in terms of their leg speed and things like that. So they always bounce back, so I'm not going to question them. But the next 3 weeks, they've got Fremantle at GMHBA, Adelaide, GMHBA and Hawthorn. So it's a big month of football.
It has long been spoken about, Jimmy, the effect that a grand final thrashing can have on a team the next year. Do you buy into any of that?
No, because now we look at that, 4 of those sides play finals. I know it's not the ideal result being in 10th, but they're just too experienced, and they've got a game style that suits. And as I said, the natural home ground advantage gets you into a position. Now, whether they can actually challenge for a premiership against the likes of Brisbane and Gold Coast and whoever else springs up throughout the year, that's a different question, but they'll put themselves in a good position again.
2 players who have put themselves in a good position is Christian Petrarca and Charlie Curnow, because they've left lesser sides to go to sides who may well be premiers this year. So just the joy. They lost their love for the game. Christian Petrarca seemed to lose his love for the game, and Charlie Curnow didn't enjoy playing football at Carlton. So it just hit me over the weekend at this. He hugged every teammate hugged him. They've fallen in love with this game. So I suppose when we were retiring, or certainly I was, it was hard to leave. You didn't really want to leave your club, but I think more and more players are just saying, no, if I want out, I'm going. But the difficult part is they're going to strong clubs, which is making it even harder for
I just wonder, Damo, if every Carlton supporter and Melbourne supporter just died just a little bit on the inside watching those games.
Yeah, I think you'd have that reaction, I think, wouldn't you? Although, equally, I think they also contributed to their own problems they had at those old clubs. Jamari Ugle-Hagan hasn't played a senior game of footy since the elimination final of 2024. There was a vacancy in the Gold Coast Suns forward line when Jed Walter was suspended. Damien Hardwick chose not to play him, and I get this feeling, and I think it's the right one, that it's going to take some weeks yet.
I love that he played well, and there's no one that is dying to get him into the side more than me, but what I want to make sure everyone understands, I see this guy as a long-term prospect for our footy club. So we want to make sure we get him absolutely cherry ripe, so when he comes in, he's ready to go.
And here he is in the vision, some of the vision in the twos. He's had, from all reports from people on the Gold Coast Suns, an extremely strong pre-season. Has barely been sighted at AFL level for the best part of 15 months prior to that, so you can understand why the Suns, particularly with how well they're going, are going to make him earn it. Matthew Lloyd's going to make a lot of people earn it in the Sledgehammer. He's back for 2026, and if the rumours are true, we're going even longer than normal after the break. He's pulled it in and said, give me more time, I need more minutes. And don't forget, Ed and the team are back for the Tuesday edition of Footy Classified. Tomorrow night, it all kicks off, and there's some great news with Fiji Airways coming on board with Footy Classified in 2026, a new direct service expanding Australian access to Fiji. Tune in tomorrow night for the huge announcement of an incredible major prize for the Fiji Airways Performance of the Year. That's Footy Classified. It's tomorrow at 10. I can see Lordo's already going for that seat 1A to Fiji, but it's the Sledgehammer that we'll be looking at next, live on Footy Classified.
The great Kevin Sheedy used to make me run laps if I marked balls on the chest that I should mark out in front of the eyes, and maybe Sam Mitchell could do it for Dylan Moore because he cost himself a shot at goal here, Dylan Moore. So get the jukes out. We're going to watch that one on the replay again. He's got to mark that out in front. We mark it on the chest. That makes it easy for the defenders to spoil. On the flip side of that, this is what I'm talking about. This is Machito Owens. The hardest mark in football is when you can get it out in front. You watch the replay. Look at how he extends his arms, and that is impossible to stop with Frampton there. Liam Ryan, why do you invite pressure? So this is an easy drop punt. Some will call me a dinosaur, but all he's doing is inviting pressure. Look at him. He's asking, they're about to charge in, they're about to charge in. But if you kick a drop punt on your preferred right foot, you don't have to worry about people running in and charging as he misses a crucial shot at a critical time. The game's fast-paced in this early round, so if you miss handballs and you're on the way out, give it to the young kid, but he tries to handball to Harry McKay. You miss fundamental handballs like this against good sides, which you just spoke about with the blowouts in the game, you will be punished on the rebound. Speaking of handballs, Ned Long is elite by hand, and this is one of the great handballs. This is Diesel Williams-like with what you saw. Looks even better from behind the goals. Have we seen a longer and more effective handball than Ned Long than this to a kid in steel who goes on and kicks his first goal at AFL football with a wizard? He's been in good form. Hawthorn haven't been, but watch his attack at full pace and full speed. He's an excitement machine. One I look forward to watching more than any other player right now at the moment. Here he goes again on the replay. Charges at times, it knows where the ball's about to drop and nails a goal. De Goey did the same thing. Imagine they can get a full season out of Jordan De Goey. Watch the way he pushes Marcus Windhager under the footy at the right time. You can't teach that. That's the first goal for Jordan De Goey. And then he takes Jack McRae into dangerous waters. Watch McRae come in, trying to get De Goey. Watch the way he backs out of it. McRae, half asleep, bang, kicks another one. And this is one for the Hawks where they were just off the Hawks. Takes a great mark, Mitch Lewis. You've got to go inboard on your right foot. Nothing worse when you give it to a player on the hand. All you can go is this side. Look where the Hawks end up. No good from the Hawks there in this game. The opposite of that. So everyone loved what Darcy did. That Darcy kicked to Bontempelli. But this is why Darcy had it where he had it. So watch Connor Buderick. Since the last clip, most players, a lot of teams would just kick that one out there. Buderick said, no, look at the scoreboard. We're up by 1 point. I'm going straight down the corridor. That was the one that hit Darcy. Darcy hits Bontempelli, and Sam, that was a sealer in that game of footy.
Absolutely sensational, Matthew Lloyd. If it's not the best segment in footy, it is quickly becoming it. The Sledgehammer. Stick around on Footy Classified. Good call, bad calls coming at you next. Welcome back to Footy Classified, and it is time for your favourite segment, Good Call, Bad Call. It's all thanks to Tab and Jimmy. We start with a new ball. The AFL has immediately undone all its opening round goodwill. Good call, bad call?
No, this is a bad call from you, Sam. Not a great start to the year by you, bad call. You don't blow up all your prime fixtures in the opening round. Opening round or round one is actually a blockbuster. So then you save them and you dot them out throughout the year.
They're clashing these two.
Yeah, but they're still good games of footy. Wish Rankin was playing that one against the Crow.
Just been shot down, Sam. This one's to you. Forget Vossi. Matthew Nicks is the most under-pressure coach in the comp.
Outrageous call, ridiculous call. One of the silliest things you've ever said on this show, call. How could Matthew Nicks, who's just taken his side to be the best team in the competition in the home and away, be under more pressure than Michael Voss?
Because he lost his...
It's a terrible call.
Do I get a right reply here?
No, you don't.
No, okay.
Damo, Richmond's season is over before it begun. Good call, bad call?
That's a really bad call, Lloyd. I'll concede it's a worrying call with what's happening on their injury list, and it's happened not just in the off-season but last year as well, particularly with some key young players on it. But that's to underestimate the coaching of that club, Lloyd. Bad call.
Lloydie, good call, bad call. The Essendon faithful will rally around their former skipper when he first gets the ball in round one.
Good call, Jimmy, and I really hope there's no jeers or there's no boos for him, because at times you're not happy and you want to let your club know. And yes, he didn't get what he wanted, but he's gone back there, he's put his head down, and hope he gets the support he deserves.
Damo, to you, the whole footy world is excited to see Christian Petrarca back to his best. Good call, bad call?
Your other one was a bad one, but that's a good one. It's a really good call, and even the coach, who was subjected to a Christian Petrarca-led 56-point loss, agrees with you.
Probably tough to feel his sting tonight, but Christian Petrarca is a lover of the game. Were you sort of pleased to see him settle into his new home up here and play so well in Queensland especially?
Yeah, rap for him. It was great. All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you. That was very good. Sam, with the opening bounce axed, Thursday night's first throw-up to start the season was a historic moment. Good call, bad call.
Now, this is an unfair call from you, and I can actually see the sarcasm in your voice. It's outrageous. But what you're referring to is Channel 7 missing the opening bounce of the season because they were concentrating on Charlie Curnow. That's okay. Everyone is entitled to mistakes, but I think that's nasty from you.
Jimmy, club lawyers are set to be the game's biggest winners in 2026. Good call, bad
This
call.
is a great call from you. You've had a good summer. Get the Lamborghinis out ready. School fees will be paid off. The element of potential to cause and elevating incidents, and also the philosophy of getting clubs to prove their innocence at tribunal. So sending things that will definitely get clubs to appeal it. This will be seen throughout the season.
And Lordo, this one's to you. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. Good call, bad call?
Good call, Damo, and I love this. Anthony Hudson, he's a very smart caller, one of the best we've got, but one of the greatest of all time is Dennis Cometti. Take a listen to what Hutto had to say over the weekend.
What a win for the Western Bulldogs. Ladies and gentlemen, you have witnessed a classic.
Hawthorn have won it by 6 points. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just seen a classic.
Well done, and just a touching moment there from Hutto, wasn't it? The closing cook is coming up next. Anyone needing to be nervous, Lord ODTs?
You, Sam.
Terrific. Coming up next.
Last year on the closing cook, I launched Scoopy No Friends, where we got caught in the change rooms, often just searching and just acting like he was important, but just really had no place being in there. And here he is, just wandering around. And anyway, I thought it was harsh at the time, but I love Oasis. And I was just vlogging, everyone all excited to go to the concert. Oasis, I vlogged this couple and who was enjoy. Let's take a look at the vision of that. So these couple are talking about Oasis, and in wanders Scoopy No Friends out of nowhere in the vlog and just caught himself on his way to the concert as well. All
in the
alone.
wild. In the wild.
Anyway. Yeah, you ruined a romantic night for them, Scoopy. No friends.
That's low.
Why'd you?
That is low.
What happened?
I was waiting for someone
in shot.
I didn't know I was on the team. Anyway, thank you for joining us on Footy Classified. Eddie and the team will be back tomorrow night. We'll see you next week.